Hello everyone, Kristen here. You may remember me from the 2017 Donna Downey Artist Gang, and I'm excited to be back for 2018 as a curator. Today, I'm going to be showing you how to turn an old, well-loved vintage book into a new, well-loved art journal. And to start, I am now preparing my signatures. These signatures are created from a very tough, strong 140-pound watercolor paper, and each signature is going to have 3 pieces of paper cut down to size and then nested in each other. So here, all I'm doing is cutting the paper down to size and setting up my signatures. Now here I'm also going to incorporate a piece of scrapbooking paper, and I'll even use some watercolor paper from my stash that has already been painted on a little bit. I like to incorporate different fun things in my journal because I think that's what sets it apart from like just a regular store-bought art journal, along with, of course, the vintage book covers. All of this is going to work together to create something totally unique and totally yours. And to me, that's pretty cool. Alright, so I'm almost done making up my signatures. I have 4 signatures, again with 3 pages stacked in each. Now, I'm going to cut the cover off of my old book. And if you look down the spine, you'll find that there's a little hole that you can get some scissors into, and you can cut the book away from the cover. And it's very neat and tidy, so you can then set this aside and use the book pages for collage. Now we can grab those scissors and we can cut down the spine of the cover. And now we have a front and back cover for our art journal. Now here I'm finding that my pages are still a little bit big for the covers, so I'm going to trim them down just a little bit with my paper trimmer so that I can get them to fit nice and neat within the cover. It's okay if the pages don't fit longwise, but I do want them to not hang out of the cover. And once we're all trimmed down, I'm going to start measuring, and I have a piece of extra paper that I've put down for a guide, and I'm going to measure 1 inch from each corner of the paper. Then from there, I'm going to measure in 3/4 of an inch on each side, and we'll end up having 6 holes. So here again, just measuring 3/4 from the last hole until we get to the center. This is probably overkill for as small of a book as it is, but I don't mind the extra binding. Now I have my guide made. I'm going to line my signatures up exactly how I want them in the book. Then I am going to grab just a Tombow marker, and I'm going to place my guide on the top. Then using one of the covers to make sure that I have a straight line with my marker, I am going to drag a line across the edge of each of these signatures, and that is going to show me where I need to poke my holes for my binding. Now I'm going to do the same thing with the covers. My bottom cover kind of already has the guide there from where the marker was dragging to it. So I'm just going to go ahead and make those a little bit more prominent, and that's going to tell me where I need to poke the holes for the cover. Now I'm just grabbing an awl, and I'm going to go through and poke holes on each signature exactly where the Tombow marker had made the mark. And again, just to make sure that it's totally clear, you want to keep everything in the exact same order as what you had it set up. So in other words, once I get done poking the holes on my first signature, I'm going to lay it down and work on the next one. And this is kind of a long, tedious process as you have to go through and poke every hole. But the more care that you take to this process, the better book that you'll end up with. Now, once I have all the holes made for my signatures, I can start making the holes on my cover. Now, I actually made a big mistake. Because my book is so old, it's pretty brittle, and I ended up making my holes a little bit too close to the edge. Now, in the end, all turns out well, and I find an awesome remedy for this. But if you just want to avoid that altogether, then start out by making sure that your holes are far away from the edge, especially if your book is really, really old, like mine is. Alright, once we have the covers ready to go, it is now time to go ahead and start sewing in our signatures to the book. So I'm going to start with my last signature and the back cover, and I have some wax linen thread and a large sewing needle. And so I'm just going to thread my needle and tie off a knot, and then we will start at the bottom hole of the inside of the signature, and you'll want to pull the thread out. So here's where I realized I had a problem, and I didn't make my holes in the cover far enough away from the edge, so my binding wasn't working out. So I went ahead and made new holes on the opposite side, and I currently have my thread through the bottom hole of the last signature. So from there, I'm going to go around the outside of the book and come back in, and then go right back through that very same hole of my signature. So it'll look like that. Now we can bring the thread up and through the next hole and then back out, and again, just as before, we're going to go around the back of the cover, go in, and then back in through that very same hole of the signature. And we're going to do this the very same way all the way until we get to the other end, the top part of the book. So now that we're at the top, I'm going to do something a little bit different. Notice here I'm pulling the thread through the previous stitch, and then I'm going back out of that same hole of the book. This is essentially tying it off so that I can now start sewing in my next signature. Starting from the outside, I'm going to go into the inside of the signature this time. Then I'm going to come back through, and right here I'm going to take the needle and push it through the binding of the previous signature. Then go back through the same hole, and I will continue on this way all the way until I get to the very end of this signature, which would be then the bottom of the book. Here we're coming up on the bottom. I have gone out. I'm going to sew it around the previous binding and then back through. Tie it off on that previous stitch just as before, and then go back out, and now I'm ready to add my next signature. And then you can just keep building up the book in this way until it's time to add the front cover. You'll see me as in each pull I am bringing the needle through the previous signature's binding, and again you want to pull, make sure that everything is pulled tight but not too tight. It is now time to sew in our last signature. Now this one's going to be a little bit tricky because that scrapbook paper doesn't line up with the rest of the size. So from here you have to just make sure that you line up the holes, and then you bind the book in just the same way as we have with all the other signatures. Now I'm saving my cover for last, so I am going to go ahead and sew through my last signature before I start putting on the cover. Alright, I have all my signatures in, and this is what my book looks like so far. Now, I just need to sew on the top cover. And just like the back, I ended up making new holes. And I'm going to start by going through the inside of the cover to the outside, looping it around, and then coming back through the signature. And I am taking a little bit of a different twist with the front, because I wanted it to look a little bit fancier. So now I had to figure out an interesting way to utilize the holes on the other side of my covers on both the front and the back. And I'm reaching for my needle and this time some purple waxed linen thread, and I'm just going to have a little bit of fun sewing through those holes that are already there, and I can also use that thread as a way to tie off my book. So you'll see on each side, both the front and back cover, I'm going to leave a little bit of excess thread that I can then use to tie together and help keep my book shut. This is especially useful once I start filling the book. It's going to get fatter and fatter, and so the tying it off will be able to help me keep it closed. But here, I'm not really keeping to any set rhyme or reason. I kind of like how raw this book looks, and so I'm kind of going with that rawness on the edge as well. Here I'm just finishing up the back cover of the book, and so far I'm having a lot of fun making this journal. It's a little bit daunting at first, I will admit, but once you get the hang of it, it starts to be a lot of fun. And I find myself making my journals smaller with less pages so that I can fill them up and create more journals. And every time I walk into an antique store, I am just always on the hunt of finding the coolest book that I can use to turn into a journal. So just to warn you, it may turn a little bit addictive, but if you're an art journaler like myself, it definitely comes in handy. So I hope you have enjoyed this little mini lesson on creating your own little art journal. And next Monday, we will regroup and start working on filling up the art journal with mixed media goodness. So I'll see you then.